Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I've recently been seeing a lot of people who want to maybe explore different social media platforms because lots of people are fed up with Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and maybe also with the people that run those places. So I thought today I'd just sort of show you around Pixelfed and Mastodon, which are two alternatives that I have been using for a couple of years now. And they might seem a little bit tricky to understand in the beginning, but I think it's mostly just getting used to it. It's a little bit different maybe than you're used to, but I think there are a lot of benefits to these platforms compared to more traditional social media. So I want to share with you today two of those platforms, namely Pixelfed, which is an alternative to Instagram, so it's for sharing photos, and I want to share with you Mastodon, which is an alternative to Twitter or X. So for me, the main reason for switching to these platforms was just being fed up with the algorithm of Instagram in particular. I was following a lot of accounts, but I was just not seeing a lot of their posts. I was just seeing so many random things that I didn't want to see, but Instagram had decided based on my interest that I should see those things, and I was just so frustrated with it. So I started looking for alternatives, and then I came across Pixelfed and Mastodon, which are both part of a group of social media platforms known as the Fediverse. Here you can see some of the platforms that are part of the Fediverse, and the interesting thing is whereas with normal or like traditional social media accounts, they are built so that you have to be on those platforms because all your friends are on there, all the people you want to follow are on there. You can't follow those people if you don't have an account. That's not the case with the Fediverse. With the Fediverse, you can actually follow people that are using different platforms. So while Pixelfed is aimed at photo sharing and Mastodon is more like microblogging, you can post text and pictures, people on Mastodon can follow my Pixelfed account and then they can actually see my pictures and vice versa. So that's a really cool feature of the Fediverse, and there's a lot of different platforms. I personally just have experience using those two, but you can see in this cloud there is PeerTube, for example, which is an alternative to YouTube. It's for sharing videos. You have Friendica, which I think is kind of similar to Facebook in a way. Bloom is a blogging platform, I believe. Bookworm is for sharing what you're reading and reviews and such. This is what Bookworm looks like. So I can also follow Bookworm accounts from my Mastodon account. And it's not just the fact that there are these different platforms that can communicate. These different platforms aren't actually one single platform. Like there isn't one Mastodon platform really. Anyone who wants to can start a Mastodon server, and these Mastodon servers interact with each other. The main Mastodon server, which might be easiest if you're just starting out, is mastodon.social, and you can join that server, and then you can also follow people on other servers, but to kind of see what that looks like, for example, here is the Mastodon server that I'm on. I'm not on, well, I am on Mastodon social, but it's kind of abbreviated. If you can see here the URL. I was originally on the original Mastodon.social server, but I moved my account because that's also a cool feature that Mastodon has. You can actually move your account from one server to another, and then you keep your followers. You don't keep your posts, but I think when it comes to a platform like this, that's fine because a lot of the time you're posting stuff that isn't really relevant in a few months' time. But yeah, this is what the homepage looks like. Might depend a little bit on the server that you're on. Also, I'm viewing this in dark mode, but in light mode it looks a bit more like X or Blue Sky. So if you prefer that, I actually don't like it anymore. I had to get used to this dark mode initially, but now the other day, it's for some reason I think the default of the server switched to light mode, and it suddenly looks so much like X, and I'm like, oh, this is gross. I don't want this. So I switched it back to dark mode. But yeah, here you can see what it looks like, and you can see already, this is one account that I'm following. It's a Swedish newspaper, and you can see this is their handle, and that's one of the differences in the Fediverse. If I want to search for a specific account, this one is Dagens Nyheter, I can't just type their name, DN, into the search bar. I'm not going to find them, because it's important to know what server they're on. It's kind of like email. You can't just send an email to someone named Bob and assume it arrives. You need to know what server they're using. So you need to know if his email address is either bob@outlook.com or bob@hotmail.com, and it's kind of similar in the Fediverse. Here you see the person's or the account's name, DN, and at the server they're on, newspapers.se, which is a Swedish server. So here to the left you see a link to my profile. It says @Brechtje, but that's not my full handle. If you go to my profile, you'll see my full handle, which is @Brechtje@Mastodon.social. If you click on it, you'll see it fully written out, then you can copy it. But that's also what you need if you want to search for someone in the search bar here. I'm not really going to scroll around too much, because I do follow a lot of personal accounts, and I don't really want to share those their messages in a YouTube video. So this is why I'm just showing you the newspaper article, because I think that's fine. So let's look around what else there is. It looks very similar, I would say, to X or Blue Sky or platforms like that. To the left you have the space where you can write something. You can change the settings to public, less public, only for your followers, or a private message. You can change the language of your post here. You can add media here, and it's always good to use an alt text. A lot of people in the Fediverse do that. It's much more common, and it is very much appreciated if you do that as well, because it makes social media more accessible to other people. You can also, on Pixelfed, both Mastodon and Pixelfed, add a content warning so that your post isn't immediately visible. In this case, on Mastodon, there will be some sort of message saying you can click on it to view more, and on Pixelfed there will sort of be a blur on top of the picture, so you can't actually see what is there, and you need to click it to view it, which I think is great. Then you can add a poll here, so that's all pretty conventional. Here you have your home timeline, notifications, explore. I've opened in here. If you do want to know which posts are popular, you can go to the Explore tab. You'll end up seeing actual people's messages, but again, I don't really show them. But here you can just see what hashtags are popular at the moment. Your timeline is just going to be, unlike other platforms maybe, it's just going to be posts from accounts you follow in chronological order, which is something I love and I'm so happy with. But initially, it does mean that your timeline is going to look a little bit empty. It's not going to be filled up by the algorithm. You have to fill it yourself. So you need to start following people, you need to start following hashtags, and a way to find interesting accounts could be by the Explore tab to see what tags are interesting, or to see what people are being followed by lots of other people, or just search for tags in the search bar and kind of add it onto that. If you want your posts to be found, there are kind of three ways that happens. Either people see your post because they follow you, or they see your post because you've used specific hashtags. Your posts are only searchable through hashtags. And then lastly, you have also a public timeline, which shows posts from this server in chronological order, and there your post will appear as well, unless you've set your settings to private or something. But those are the ways your posts are found. So don't just write a toot, as it's called, and assume that people will find it through searching for specific words. No, you have to actually use hashtags for that. Then you have your private messages here, bookmarks, the posts you've liked or favorites as they're called. So then you have lists here, which is also a nice feature. You can create different lists, that's what you do here, and then you can add accounts to these lists, which sort of create curated timelines with specific topics. So I have books, history, news, for example, which is a safe one to use now. This timeline only shows the accounts that I follow that I've added to it that have something to do with news, so like a Dutch newspaper, a Swedish newspaper. So you can create different lists that way, which I think is really nice. And then the individual posts, as you can see, you can like a post here, you can boost it, as it's called, you can save it, or you can reply to it, and with the dots here you can report it if necessary. So this is my Mastodon profile. You see a couple links here that I've shared. The only way to sort of verify, you sometimes see people in the Fediverse that have a name with a check mark behind it. On Mastodon that doesn't mean anything if it's a name with a check mark. That's just someone who puts an emoji in their name. The only way you can sort of verify that someone is who they say they are is through using links and linking back to your account. So here I have a check mark next to my Pixelfed account, because on my Pixelfed account I've also linked to my Mastodon account. So that way it's clear that I am that person that runs that account, essentially. So this is my personal timeline, and this post might be interesting because this is actually something that I've posted on Pixelfed, but I've boosted it on Mastodon, so you can also see it here. As you can see here, this is my account on Pixelfed at decibelsummer@pixelfed.social. So this is actually, I'm using the same profile picture, but it's a different account. And this is what it looks like. And then this is the same exact post, but viewed from my Pixelfed account. The difference here is that there's actually 10 pictures in this post, whereas here on Mastodon you only can see 4. So there are differences between the platforms. Less pictures on Mastodon that are visible, but on Mastodon you can have text only posts, which isn't possible on Pixelfed. So those are things you can take into account when choosing what platform you want to be on. So yeah, this is the same post with more pictures this time. And as you can see, some of these pictures are rather large, like this one, but that's actually, you can change this in the UI settings here. You can turn this on compact media previews if you like that, and then you get smaller pictures, and if it's on your timeline and you click on one of these pictures you get a larger version of it, so you can still view it, but I prefer to have this turned off. So this is what my home timeline on Pixelfed looks like. Again, I'm not going to scroll too much because I don't want to share people's personal pictures, but this is from a Dutch museum, so it's fine. Yeah, to the left here you can create a new post. You have a link to your home feed, your local feed, which is all the posts from the server you're on, or the global feed, which shows all the posts, I guess, from federated platforms, which can also be Mastodon servers that, contain a picture. You have direct messages, discover, which again is for if you're interested in seeing what posts are actually popular, and might be a good way to start looking for interesting accounts if you're new to Pixelfed. And to the right here you have notifications, where you can see who liked your post, who shared your post, who commented on it. Because sharing is also something that's a thing on Pixelfed, which isn't really a thing in the same way on Instagram. And on Instagram you can maybe share a post in your stories, but you can't actually share them in your timeline. But that is a thing on Pixelfed. As you can see here, you can like a post, you can comment on it, and you can save it here to the right. But then this is for boosting a post, which means that it shows up in the timeline of the people that are following you, if they have that setting turned on, that is. I will also show you my profile on Pixelfed. This is what my Pixelfed profile looks like. So you have the grid with all the different pictures. You have different ways of viewing these pictures, and you can change that in the UI settings, grid, main story, or feed, to keep it that way. If you hover over the post, you see how many likes, how many comments, and how many boosts. Here you can see the posts that you have liked, the posts that you have bookmarked, and then you have collections, which is also an interesting feature. I think you can essentially group different pictures together. I've made an album, so to say, for my Camino trip. It's not very clearly visible, but if you click on these posts, then there's actually more pictures than just one. But it's kind of nice if you want to share pictures from a trip like this, for example, but you don't necessarily need to share your profile. You can send them a link to this collection, and it just directs people in the right way immediately to all my Camino pictures, so that's quite nice. And as I mentioned, that on my Mastodon profile, it's sort of my Pixelfed account is sort of verified. You can see that here I've written my Mastodon account in my bio here, so that's how it sort of gets verified. So yeah, as I mentioned, there are many different Mastodon servers, which is one of the things why it seems a little bit more complicated in the beginning. If you want to join Mastodon, it's best to go to joinmastodon.org. You can read a little bit more about Mastodon. You can also see some of the benefits I haven't mentioned so far. I think I mentioned that there is no algorithm to the home timeline. You just see the posts from people you're following in chronological order, but you also don't have ads, which is great. Just good idea maybe before you sign up to have a look around. But if you go to the servers page, you can see all the servers that are available to you if you want to join a Mastodon server. The main one is mastodon.social. That's the largest one, and it's a very safe bet if you just are starting out and have no clue. But there are all types of very specific servers for different nationalities, but also different interests. Here, for example, you see a Mastodon server for people from Canada, a Mastodon server for Scottish people, Bookstodon, a specific Mastodon server for book enthusiasts, mastodonapp.uk. So you see here in the description now with a 1,000 character limit for post. It is also interesting, if you want to, you don't have to, but you can look into the specifics of the different servers, because they do sometimes differ a little bit. Some servers like this one allow more characters, some allow less, some allow more pictures, some allow less. So these are all details that make them a little bit different. It's not too relevant, I would say, in the beginning, but if you are ever planning to move, it could be interesting to look into these kind of details. Mastodon.green, I think this is actually one of the very few servers I've seen where you have to pay, I believe, because they are trying to run the server also in a green way, so I think that's the reason you have to pay. mastoart.social for interested in art. I will probably put some more on the screen now so that you can have a look at what other servers there are out there. So same for Pixelfed. If you would like to join, it's best to go to pixelfed.org. You can have a look around the website, but you can also find all the different servers that are available, or at least a lot of the servers that are available. Pixelfed.social, which is what I'm on, that's the main server, which is operated by the creator of Pixelfed, but you also have pixelfed.de, a German version. pixelfed.tokyo, pixelfed.art. Again, kind of interesting to have a look around which Pixelfed servers are available. And then the Pixelfed and Mastodon websites also show you what apps are available, because the cool thing is, again, you have a lot to choose here. You don't actually have to use the official Pixelfed app for your Pixelfed account. There is an official Pixelfed app that you can download, but here, as you can see, browse third-party apps. You have a few other ones that you can use as well, and for Mastodon there's even more. Let's see where it is. Yeah, for Mastodon there's even a lot more options for apps. Like, there's a giant list. The only one that I personally have used is Tusky. I enjoyed that, and I've used it for both Mastodon and for my Pixelfed account, which is slightly confusing maybe, but yeah, you can also use it for your Pixelfed account. It looks like an app that is like Twitter, so but you're using it for your Instagram account, so it doesn't work flawlessly. I would say it limits the amount of pictures you can post, for example, but you can use it. But I have switched by now to the official Pixelfed app, so because that is available now. So last thing I thought I'd show you is Guppe, or however you pronounce it, groups, which is an interesting way, especially on Mastodon. If you want to find interesting accounts to follow, you can maybe start out by following a Guppe group. That is a group for people that post stuff around a particular topic. You have lots of different groups. Here is an actually autistic group, Bookstodon group, neurodiversity group, and the way it works is described here as at the top. You can create a new group or just search for it by at your group name here at this bit, and then if it already exists, it will show up, or you can create it. And if you follow that, then you get all the posts that have this group tagged in the description. So you can also that way send posts to the group. So it's kind of a nice way to find people with similar interests that way. So yeah, this was a hopefully somewhat quick look around two platforms on the Fediverse. I will link an interesting video below if you just want to know a little bit more about how the Fediverse works, because I'm not the best at explaining how it works, but I think it's really cool, and I think it's a really nice platform to be on. Both Mastodon and Pixelfed, I just find that in general the vibe is much more chill. Like, in general, there's a lot more marginalized people on here, I would say. Lots of people with disabilities, lots of queer people. So it just feels like a more safe community to me. Not to say that nothing ever happens, because it's the internet, stuff does happen, but I feel much safer here. And I don't know, I just feel like the vibe is very chill, like especially some of the hashtags that people use. Maybe that people use those on Instagram and Twitter as well, but I just never saw them, like Mastodon for like pictures of moss on Mastodon, which I find just funny. And on Sunday, lots of people on Pixelfed post a picture with an hashtag Silent Sunday without many other tags, without much text, and just kind of calming pictures, which is quite nice. I think in general, just the sort of pictures that people post on Pixelfed are also a bit different, like a little bit less self-centered, maybe a little bit more about beautiful nature, slow living, things like that, and I really enjoy those things. So for me, it's a great platform. I would be interested to hear if you are going to join, or if you have any experience with other platforms in the Fediverse, because I haven't really used those much, and I'd love to hear more about those. So yeah, hope you found this useful, and maybe I'll see you in another video. Bye!